In the fading warmth of summer, life stirs within the tranquil courtyards of Prince Xiao's residence.
A decisive click sounds as a teacup is set down, signaling the messenger's urgent departure.
Bowing deeply, the red-robed official takes his leave after delivering news to the Xiao household. Following the official's exit, Prince Xiao and his wife watch the horizon with heavy, concerned gazes.
Worries fill the air as the couple discusses Princess Li Ping's difficult reputation and their son's future.
The blue-eyed son, Xiao Yanji, remains stoic, urging his parents to accept the emperor's will.
Through a haze of memories, the complicated history of the deposed crown prince's daughter is revealed.
Delicate pink blossoms frame the late emperor's calculated plan to control the Xiao family through marriage. Walking together, the parents fret over whether their serious son can endure a life with the princess.
Clad in green, Xiao Yanji carries an aura of quiet strength and duty as he moves forward.
Standing on a sunlit bridge, the young man reflects on the path laid out for him.
Watching the vibrant koi, Yanji resolves to treat his future bride well regardless of her temperament.
A gentle hand rests against the wooden railing, a moment of stillness amidst the blooming garden.
A solitary dewdrop clings to a leaf as Yanji prays for a marriage filled with genuine harmony.
Deep within the palace, Emperor Xie Chaling listens intently as an audience has requested.
Resting his chin on his hand, the emperor reacts with sharp interest to Princess Li Ping's arrival. Draped in ornate red and black, Princess Li Ping makes a grand entrance into the imperial hall.
A close-up reveals Li Ping's stunning features, masking the complex secrets hidden behind those amethyst eyes.
Bowing with grace, Li Ping offers formal respects and wishes of health to the reigning emperor.
The emperor remains silent, his piercing gaze carefully evaluating every movement of the princess before him.
Li Ping speaks with practiced femininity, hiding a surprising truth regarding the princess's true identity.
A secret unfolds as narration explains Li Ping is a man using opera skills to maintain a disguise.
In a rare moment of levity, the disguised Li Ping playfully asks the exasperated emperor about his outfit.
The emperor warns of the dire consequences should the Zhao family discover their daughter-in-law's true gender.
Li Ping brushes off the danger, leading the emperor to compare his rebellious nature to his little father. Coughing playfully, Li Ping reminds the emperor that his own empress was once a formidable male king. A glimmer of amusement touches the emperor's eyes as he acknowledges the young man's sharp wit. With the tension broken, Li Ping offers a soft, genuine smile to the ruler he calls father.
The emperor dismisses him with a sharp command to maintain his boundaries and stay safe.
Leaving the hall, Li Ping encounters the elegant black-haired empress who has been watching the exchange. King K, now the male empress, greets Li Ping with a gentle and supportive gaze. Li Ping expresses his heartfelt gratitude to his little father for smoothing things over with the emperor. Soft light catches Li Ping's eye as he prepares to transition back into his public persona. Walking through a shower of cherry blossoms, Li Ping leaves the palace to face his new fate.
A sudden, sharp snap sounds as a hairpin is adjusted, preparing the princess for the ceremony.
Looking back one last time, Li Ping's hair flows wildly as he steps toward his wedding. Amidst drifting petals, a brown-haired figure in elegant red robes accepts tea from a humble servant.
A servant reads a scroll aloud, detailing the respectful but somber reactions to the imperial decree.
A subtle, knowing smirk plays on the lips of the brown-haired person in the red silks. Lifting a cup, the figure in red dismisses the report with a calm, practiced air of indifference. Whimsical versions of the duo float playfully, inviting readers to share in their unfolding journey. Following the betrothal ceremony, the Grand Palace stands ready to host a magnificent imperial celebration. Officials and elders bow low in the Great Hall as the imperial family takes their seats.
Raising a toast, the emperor introduces the exceptional Xiao Yanji as the new prince consort.
Graceful dancers in pink silks twirl through the hall, adding beauty to the festive atmosphere. The banquet is a vision of opulence, with music and movement filling the vast sunlit chamber. The emperor observes Yanji, impressed by the young man's dignified demeanor and lack of frivolity. Xie Chaoling watches his new son-in-law closely, confirming the late emperor's wise choice for the family.
As the feast continues, the emperor reflects on the strategic alliances forming at the heart of the empire.
Amidst the banquet's hum, the crown prince acknowledges the Zhao family's obvious displeasure regarding the union. Observing the young prince consort, the crown prince decides to see how the 17-year-old fares.
A steady hand tips a small porcelain cup, draining the contents in a single, silent gulp.
His face flushed with wine, Xiao Yanji remains stoic under the crown prince's intense, calculating gaze. Stepping forward, the crown prince offers to drink on the prince consort's behalf to prevent intoxication.
From a distance, an observer watches the interaction between the imperial family and the Zhao household.
Xiao Yanji studies the crown prince, noting the man's virtuous reputation seems well-deserved upon their meeting.
In a playful moment, a servant encourages the prince consort to enjoy some refreshing imperial tea.
Standing amidst the falling blossoms, Xiao Yanji watches the crown prince with a mixture of curiosity.
The crown prince privately considers the young man naive for falling for the princess's clever deceptions.
Despite the surrounding schemes, Xiao Yanji trusts the crown prince will handle the situation with wisdom.
Addressing the court, the emperor commands his guards to grant Xiao Yanji a prestigious jade belt.
Standing before the throne, Xiao Yanji offers his deep gratitude to the emperor for the honor.
Turning back, the crown prince eyes Yanji with a lingering look of intrigue and unspoken intent.
To the surprise of those watching, the crown prince personally takes the jade belt to fasten.
A soft, quick scat sounds as the crown prince closes the distance to the startled prince consort.
Proximity sparks a moment of quiet intensity as the two men lock eyes during the intimate gesture.
Whispers ripple through the hall as officials question the crown prince's sudden extreme favor toward Yanji.
Yanji reflects on the unusual honor of the crown prince personally tending to his wedding attire.
A sudden flinch accompanies a sharp as Yanji finds the unexpected physical contact strangely itchy.
With the belt secured, the crown prince offers a charming wish for everlasting harmony and love.
Bowing his head, Yanji offers thanks while the crown prince graciously waives all further formal protocols.
A brief physical interaction occurs as the two continue their exchange amidst the grand palace festivities.
Leaving the hall behind, Xiao Yanji walks toward his future as the crown prince stands alone. Claiming the wine has affected him, Yanji respectfully requests permission to withdraw and rest from the banquet.
With a polite nod and a soft smile, the crown prince allows the weary young man's departure. Looking toward the horizon, the disguised Princess Lepping remains a silent, imposing figure within the palace.
Sunlight filters through the trees, marking a peaceful transition in the wake of the imperial celebration.
Bright light bathes the traditional architecture, signaling the start of a new chapter for both households. Resting her chin on her hand, Lepping enjoys tea while contemplating the secrets hidden from the world.
A worried servant frets over whether anyone can truly manage the princess's formidable and imposing presence.
Back at the manor, servants prepare sober tea to help the masters recover from the day's events.
Returning home, Xiao Yanji takes a quiet moment to drink the tea and clear his mind.
Excitedly calling out to her big brother, a young girl rushes to greet the returning Xiao Yanji.
With wide, sparkling eyes, the girl gushes about how beautiful the new princess sister-in-law truly is.
Listening to her praise, Yanji offers a gentle, affectionate smile to his spirited and observant little sister.
The young girl clings to her brother, overjoyed by the family's new and prestigious imperial connection.
Curious about his heart, the little girl asks her brother if he truly likes his new bride.
She looks up with an innocent, expectant expression, waiting for a reveal of his true feelings.
Softly looking down at the bowl in his hands, Xiao Yanji quietly confirms his positive feelings.
Watching from a distance, the princess consort wonders about the origins of her son's calm, stoic nature.
Prince Xiao and his wife discuss the emperor's favor, hoping the princess will be equally satisfied.
Prince Xiao reminds his wife that their loyalty belongs solely to the emperor to avoid future mistakes.
Sitting in the quiet hall, Yanji finds himself alone with his thoughts following the chaotic wedding day.
A close-up reveals the subtle, lingering thoughts of the prince consort as he processes the day's events.
Yanji holds the gifted jade belt, the physical reminder of the crown prince's surprising and personal favor.
A servant notes the crown prince must like him. Yanji insists it was merely respect for Lepping.
The servant bows deeply while presenting the tray, maintaining the humble order of the Xiao household. Recollecting the ceremony, Yanji remembers the crown prince's fingers brushing against his waist several times.
Though he finds the memory strange, he dismisses the thought and resolves to remain grateful for everything.
Princess Leaping remains calm, her amethyst eyes reflecting a depth of hidden schemes and grace.
The Eastern Palace shines under the soft sunset, a place of power and ancient imperial traditions. Lepping orders a servant to find the finest embroiderer for a special, custom wedding robe.
Narration explains the Liang tradition where a princess gives her future husband a handmade robe.
Resting his chin on his hand, the disguised princess reflects on his growing curiosity about Yanji.
A precise measurement is considered as Leaping visualizes the perfect fit for his future consort.
Purple eyes narrow slightly as the disguised prince plots his next move with calculated care. Instructions are given for the robe's fit while carriages prepare for a royal departure outside.
In the grand hall, Prince Zhao sits stoically while his wife stands nearby, waiting. The princess consort looks distressed, clutching a handkerchief while her husband remains stoic and indifferent.
Xiao Yanji returns home, reassuring his anxious mother that the princess sent kind, reassuring words.
A servant presents the gifted robe, its exquisite craftsmanship catching the light in the manor.
Surprised and relieved, the mother gazes at the high-quality garment sent personally by the princess.
She praises the tribute fabric, certain the princess must be truly satisfied with her son.
Tipping his cup, Prince Xiao sternly warns his son never to neglect his royal bride.
Yanji and his mother depart the hall together, leaving the master of the house behind.
Arriving at Guanghua Temple, Yanji adjusts his new robe, mindful of the day's solemnity.
Together, the mother and son offer incense, praying for peace and their family's future prosperity.
The mother heads toward the Guanyin temple alone to pray for her daughter's fertility.
Yanji watches her go, his silhouette framed by the peaceful greenery and the temple's eaves.
A servant girl beams at the young master, noting how handsome he looks in green.
Yanji's expression remains neutral, though he is clearly processing the significance of the princess's gift.
From behind a screen, Leping observes Yanji, noting the robe enhances his noble, refined appearance.
Pleased with the result, the disguised princess admires the young man's dignified and handsome bearing.
A servant informs Leping that the Xiao family has arrived to seek fertility blessings nearby.
Leping smiles at the mother's eagerness for a grandchild, finding the entire situation quite amusing.
With a thoughtful look, Leping commands the servant to invite the prince consort inside immediately.
The temple's ornate roof reaches toward the sky as the bright afternoon sun begins dipping. Shadows fall across the translucent screen as Leping watches Yanji wait patiently in the courtyard.
A sudden breeze stirs Yanji's hair, catching his attention as he turns toward the hall. Sensing a gaze, the young man looks up with a mixture of curiosity and formal respect.
Yanji's eyes search the building, unaware of the secret observer watching him from the dark.
In a playful moment, a chibi-style Leping chuckles to himself, labeling the serious man a fool.
Bowing deeply, Xiao Yanji offers formal greetings to the princess hidden behind the silk screen.
Sunlight catches the fine weave of his robe as he maintains a respectful, still posture.
Leping's voice drifts from behind the curtain, graciously waving away the young man's formal greetings.
A gentle, knowing smile plays on Leping's lips as he addresses his startled future husband.
Bowing his head, Yanji notes that the princess's voice is far softer than he imagined.
They exchange polite words through the screen, with Yanji thanking her for her unexpected, generous gift.
Leping asks with a hint of mischief if he thinks she is being too petty.
Flustered, Yanji quickly apologizes, insisting that any mistake in protocol was entirely his own fault.
Leping's smile widens at the boy's earnestness, enjoying the playful control he holds over him.
The disguised prince dismisses the argument, deciding to let the serious young man off easy. Leping moves to depart for his own prayers, leaving Yanji standing alone in the hall.
Long brown hair brushes against the silk curtain as the princess fades back into shadows.
Yanji remains fixed on the screen, mesmerized by the brief and mysterious encounter he shared. A servant interrupts his thoughts, announcing that his mother is waiting for their return home.
Distracted, the young man blinks as he tries to reconcile the soft voice with reality. Leping watches from a distance, resting his chin on his hand as Yanji finally leaves.
The guest hall stands silent under the clear sky, harboring the secrets of their brief meeting.
A hand holds chopsticks over a nearly empty white bowl on a wooden table.
Finishing his meal, Xiao Yanji informs his mother he is going outside for a walk.
Black boots step across the stone-paved courtyard as Yanji heads out into the gardens.
Yanji stands peacefully among the lush green trees, enjoying a moment of quiet solitude. A servant in blue armor approaches Yanji, relaying an invitation from the princess.
Startled by the sudden summons, Yanji politely asks the guard to lead the way.
Together, they walk through the sun-dappled courtyard toward the princess's private and elegant quarters. Entering the hall, Yanji bows deeply before a decorative screen to greet the hidden princess. Behind the translucent screen, Princess Leping graciously invites him to dispense with formal protocol.
Leping explains she found offering incense alone dull and invited him for a casual chat.
White flowers bloom on a branch while Yanji remains silent, carefully considering the princess's words.
Sunlight filters through the screen as Yanji waits respectfully for his future bride to continue.
A close-up reveals Leping's amethyst eyes narrowing with a secret, calculating, and playful intent.
Yanji remains firm, stating that he must uphold proper etiquette without overstepping his bounds. Leping rests her hand on the teapot, asking if he expects such distance after marriage. They discuss the proper distance between spouses while Yanji maintains his stoic and serious expression.
Leping sips her tea with refined grace, her long brown hair cascading over her shoulders.
Looking downcast, Yanji honestly admits that he does not know how to answer her question.
Leping asks if it is unusual for the emperor to appoint a consort without titles. Through the open doors, the grand roofs of the imperial palace shimmer under the afternoon sun.
Leping's intense gaze meets Yanji's shocked reaction as she challenges his belief in what's right.
Feeling suddenly weary, the princess dismisses the prince consort so she can rest.
Yanji is left speechless, wondering what he should have said to the enigmatic young woman.
Respectfully taking his leave, Yanji turns away from the screen to depart the quiet hall.
The servant stands by the door as Yanji walks back out into the bright gardens.
Leaping sips her tea in silence after being informed that the prince has finally left.
Standing by the window, Leaping admires a small flowering branch while lost in her thoughts.
Leaping asks her servant to compare the small flower in her hand to those outside.
She reflects on the meaning of beauty that can only be admired from a far distance. A hand releases the branch, letting the delicate petals fall away into the gentle breeze.
Leaping vows that if something won't follow her, she will find a way to pluck it.
Night falls over Chunhui Palace as servants carry heavy red boxes through the dark courtyards.
During the fifth watch, several servants help Lepine dress in a magnificent red wedding robe.
Leping touches her lip thoughtfully, her profile illuminated by the soft light of the candles.
A sigh escapes the elderly servant as she carefully combs the princess's long, dark hair.
Clad in her bridal finery, Leping gazes at her reflection with a confident, knowing smile. Leaping explains that she must personally secure her position to prevent any better wives appearing. The elderly nanny looks at the princess with a weary and slightly skeptical expression.
A close-up focuses on Leping's amethyst eye as she prepares for her impending marriage night. Leaning on her hand, Leaping wonders aloud if the prince consort will truly like her.
The servant reassures her that as husband and wife, he will surely grow to like her. A chibi-style version of the servant appears confused, surrounded by floating blue question marks. Dawn breaks over the grand imperial palace, signaling the start of the formal wedding ceremony.
Dressed in ornate red robes, Leaping stands before the court as peach blossoms sway nearby.
From behind, the couple stands together as they prepare to face the emperor and empress. A royal official pours wine, offering a blessing for the children to weather storms together. Leaping drinks while insisting that her identity as a princess must be respected during ceremonies.
Two noble men watch the couple with calm, satisfied expressions from the side of the hall. Leaping promises the Empress Dowager she will keep the advice about softening her temper close.
In a cute chibi moment, a quick "fi" sounds as the princess and servant exchange glances.
Xiao Yanji stands stoically while Leping, disguised in gray robes, watches him with a calculated gaze.
A sharp, mocking "ha" sounds as Leping's purple eyes narrow with secret amusement.
Leaping reflects on the kingdom's stability and the necessity of her impending marriage.
Xiao Yanji stares ahead, insisting that the crown prince must handle his own responsibilities. Amidst falling blossoms, the magnificent red train of the princess's wedding robe sweeps across the stones.
Clad in exquisite bridal finery, Princess Leping hides her face behind a decorative golden fan.
A royal musician blows a long golden horn, announcing the arrival of the auspicious hour. Disguised as a noble escort, Leaping rides a horse through the sun-dappled palace gardens. Officials whisper about the Empress's efforts to ensure the princess is treated with utmost respect. Red banners flutter against the temple eaves as the afternoon sun illuminates the palace grounds.
Dressed in a vibrant red wedding robe, Xiao Yanji rides through the crowd with dignity.
Xiao Yanji offers formal greetings, arriving to escort his high-profile bride to the ceremony. Leaping notes Xiao Yanji's calm and composed bearing, finding his noble grace quite impressive. A playful smirk touches Leaping's lips as she watches the attendance from her vantage point. Xiao Yanji looks on as a hand reaches to pull back the heavy ceremonial curtain. Princess Leaping stands tall in her bridal robes, her presence commanding even behind her fan. The couple stands together, forming a striking image against the backdrop of trees and blossoms. Xiao Yanji is stunned to realize the princess is actually taller than he is. Adjusting his posture, the young heir prepares to lead his elegant and mysterious bride forward. Peering through the fine silk of her veil, Leping watches the world with an intense gaze. Intricate embroidery on her sleeve glitters as the princess maintains her perfectly still royal posture. A soft, subtle smile crosses Xiao Yanji's face as he takes in the celebratory atmosphere. Red boxes filled with treasures arrive at the princess's residence under the glow of sunset. A mother and child share a simple meal, a peaceful contrast to the palace's grand wedding. Palace staff share a joyful laugh, pleased by the union that secures the kingdom's future. Citizens and soldiers bow low as the ornate wedding palanquin makes its way through the gates. Leping graciously waves away the formalities, her voice clear and authoritative behind the fan.
Leading her by the hand, Xiao Yanji guides the princess toward the inner palace halls.
They walk side by side through the courtyard, the red of their robes matching the festive scenery. An official calls out that the auspicious hour has arrived, signaling the start of the rituals.
The couple bows deeply to one another, their silhouettes framed by the palace's grand architecture.
Xiao Yanji stands tall, yet the princess's height continues to surprise those watching the ceremony. Attendants whisper in awe, noting that the princess is even taller than the handsome young heir. In a cute chibi moment, the nanny happily imagines a future filled with many grandchildren.
A hand rests delicately on the ceremonial fan, keeping the princess's face hidden from public view. A weary breath escapes Leaping as she adjusts her heavy ornaments during a quiet moment.
Chibi Leping commands her nanny to prepare wine and food for the couple's private night.
Moonlight bathes the palace as Leping waits in the bridal chamber for her consort's arrival.
Hiding behind her fan, a chibi Leaping peeks out with wide, expectant purple eyes. Flushing a deep red, Xiao Yunji hides his face behind his sleeve in a moment of shyness.
Xiao Yanji stands before the seated princess, his expression a mix of blushing nerves and respect. An attendant instructs the prince consort to step forward and take the fan from the princess.
Hesitantly, Xiao Yangji reaches out to finally reveal the face of his new wife.
Their fingers brush as the princess prepares to lower her fan and face her husband.
Gold jewelry and crimson silk drape over the princess as she sits in poised, regal silence.
Purple eyes gaze out with sharp, knowing intensity as the fan is finally moved aside.
Bowing deeply, Chen Xiao Yanji offers formal greetings to the princess in their bridal chamber.
The pair stares at each other in a tense chibi standoff, both appearing quite nervous.
Xiao Yanji looks up with wide, shimmering eyes as the official wedding rituals conclude. Together, they drink the ceremonial wine from ritual gourds, sealing their marriage under the blossoms.
Intricate patterns on the red wedding robe shimmer as the ceremony concludes.
Xiao Yanji remains composed as attendants prepare him for the night ahead.
A single candle flickers beside blooming flowers, casting a warm bridal glow. The newlyweds sit together in silence, surrounded by the weight of expectations.
Princess Leaping breaks the tension, asking if the prince consort intends to stay still.
Yanji suddenly realizes the princess looks exactly like the crown prince he once met. Chibi Yanji's eyes widen with shock as he struggles with this startling revelation. Despite her beauty, Yanji can't ignore the uncanny resemblance between the royal siblings.
Leaping reveals that she and the crown prince Huizhen are actually twins.
Huizhen stares back, preparing to share an even more dangerous royal secret.
A pensive Chibi Leaping considers how much of the truth she should reveal.
Huizhen reveals he was raised as a girl to ensure his survival as heir.
Pressing a finger to his lips, Huizhen commands Yanji to guard this secret.
Leping smiles softly, trusting Yanji's honesty to keep the family's dangerous truth hidden.
The candle burns low as the gravity of their shared secret settles in. Tiredness settles over Leping as she prepares for the reality of their marriage.
Yanji's face flushes a deep red, overcome by the awkwardness of the moment.
Leaping boldly asks the flustered prince consort if he understands their marital duties. Stuttering and blushing, Yanji explains that his mother never sent him any concubines.
Yanji insists he studied hard to serve the princess properly, making her curious.
Leaning in close, Leaping playfully asks her husband exactly how he studied.
Chibi Yanji reveals he learned everything through paintings, his head spinning with embarrassment.
A burst of laughter escapes Leping as Yangji looks down in pure dejection.
Huizhen decides against consummation, wanting a partner, not someone merely focused on service.
The heavy golden headpiece rests on the table as the long night continues.
Yanji prepares for rest, his mind reeling from the day's unexpected revelations. Leping dismisses him to rest, while Yanji politely offers to sleep elsewhere. The princess looks over her shoulder, watching her husband with an enigmatic gaze.
Huizhen touches his hair, finding the prince consort's rigid behavior both amusing and annoying.
In bed, Yanji resolves to keep a respectful distance to avoid making Leping uncomfortable.
As Yanji drifts off, Leping whispers his name, watching him in the darkness.
Seeing him finally asleep, Huizhen notes how exhausted the young man must be. Huizhen pulls the sleeping Yanji closer, holding him gently as the night deepens.
A bright new morning dawns over the peaceful and ornate palace rooftops.
Yanji watches quietly as an elderly servant combs the princess's long hair.
Leaping tells him not to get too close, maintaining her usual royal distance.
Yanji stands back, his expression unreadable as he observes his mysterious new wife.
Huizhen reassures him that as husband and wife, they should live together naturally.
Yanji reflects on the princess's unpredictable temper while she adjusts her jewelry.
With a charming smile, Leping invites her consort to join her in the study.
The scene shifts to the Emperor's chambers later that afternoon for a formal meeting.
The couple bows respectfully before the seated emperor and empress in the grand hall.
Formalities are waved aside as tea is served for the visiting royal couple.
Sunlight glimmers on the bamboo and silk as the family conversation begins. The Empress notices the Crown Prince's absence, asking if something is wrong.
Huizhen hides his secret identity, claiming the Crown Prince has caught a cold.
A worried Chibi Empress asks if the prince's illness is truly serious.
Huizhen dismisses the illness as the emperor spits out his tea in shock, a sudden phut sounding.
Chibi Leping looks relieved, noting that the update on her brother's health is good news.
Huizhen reflects on how the emperor and empress have always protected the twin secret.
The emperor asks Xiao Yanji if anything has been inconvenient at the princess's residence. Xiaoyanji moves to stand, but the emperor insists he sit and speak freely.
Chibi Xiaoyanji nervously confirms everything is well as the empress watches him closely.
Sunlight fills the study as the royal family continues their private meeting over tea. The emperor encourages Xiaoyanji to seek an official career using his education and skills. Xiaoyanji humbly declines, worried that entering court now might lead to a lack of trust. The emperor listens to the young man's explanation, acknowledging his surprisingly mature perspective. The empress leans closer, her gaze lingering on Xiaoyanji during the tense career discussion. Closing his eyes, the emperor silently weighs Xiaoyanji's refusal and his family's position. The emperor agrees to think on the matter again, ending the formal career inquiry. Noon arrives as the emperor grants Xiaoyanji a break to recover from his cold.
Chibi Princess Leaping looks puzzled as the emperor asks about the crown prince's absence.
Chibi Leaping floats into the conversation with a convenient career suggestion for her husband.
Princess Leaping watches the emperor with a calculating gaze, her true intentions hidden behind a smile.
The emperor realizes that Leaping and the young heir have likely conspired together beforehand.
Close-up on the emperor's sharp eyes as he considers the princess's clever political maneuver.
The emperor warns Leaping that while he indulges her, she must not overstep her limits.
The emperor sets a one-year deadline for Leaping to make the marriage work properly. Leaping respectfully accepts her father's conditions, though her expression remains heavy with private thought. The emperor commands Leaping to be more disciplined, emphasizing that crossing lines won't be tolerated.
Transitioning inside the imperial palace, the scene shifts to a formal family dining hall.
Steam rises from a variety of exquisite dishes served during the royal family's meal. Xiaoyanji holds his cup with quiet grace, finally beginning to relax at the table.
Narrator notes that Xiaoyanji's ceremonial etiquette is flawless as he dines with the emperor.
The emperor pours a drink for the young heir, signaling his deep favor and respect.
Xiaoyanji looks up in utter shock as the emperor pours for him personally.
The emperor insists on pouring the drink, noting how composed the young man appears.
The emperor is impressed by Xiaoyanji's solemn tone and apparent sincerity during their interaction.
Princess Leaping maintains her demure facade, claiming she is merely a weak woman.
A mocking smile touches the emperor's lips as he repeats Leaping's claim of being weak.
In a cute chibi moment, the emperor reminds Yanji to assert himself despite the princess's rank.
Xiaoyanji insists he wouldn't dare argue with the princess, even if she were wrong.
The emperor finds the young man's dedication and sincerity truly impressive for someone his age. The emperor offers heartfelt advice on mutual tolerance and protection within their royal marriage. Princess Leaping and Xiaoyanji offer their humble thanks for the emperor's wise guidance.
The royal party departs the palace, traveling by carriage and horse toward the Zhao residence.
High-ranking officials and guards wait outside the grand entrance of the Zhao prince's residence. Peering out from the carriage, Princess Leaping observes the welcoming party gathered at the gates.
Princess Leaping is assisted from the carriage as she arrives for the formal family visit.
A close-up of the princess shows her poised and regal as she acknowledges the greetings. Leaping graciously allows the household to rise, ending the formal bowing formalities upon her arrival. Seated in a peaceful outdoor pavilion, the princess presents red gifts to the gathered family. Leaping hand-delivered.
Xiaoyanji's mother is ready for grandkids, proving that parents everywhere have the same agenda.
After dinner, Princess Leaping prepares to depart as the night air turns cold and dark. Rain begins to pour as the carriage travels through the dark, misty mountain pass.
Pulling back the heavy curtain, Leaping looks out into the drenching storm with a worried gaze.
Soaked to the bone, Xiaoyanji rides alongside the carriage in the freezing torrential rain.
Frustration flashes in Leaping's eyes as she watches her husband endure the harsh weather outside.
Leaping commands the carriage to stop, ordering the wet prince consort to seek shelter inside. Princess Leaping commands Xiaoyanji to sit, and he complies with quiet, humble gratitude.
Yanji looks down pensively while the princess watches him with a distant, cold gaze.
A close-up reveals the princess's sharp purple eyes filled with a heavy, silent intensity.
In a cute chibi moment, Leaping orders her wet husband to remove his outer robe.
Xiaoyanji begins unfastening his soaked garment, his face tight with awkward, lingering discomfort.
Drying himself, Yanji remains silent as the princess observes him from the shadows. Leaping questions why he didn't enter the carriage, her expression a mix of concern and frustration. The princess tosses a towel at Yanji, warning him not to be so stubborn next time. Bowing his head, Yanji quietly admits his mistake to the clearly displeased princess. Leaping remarks on his rigid nature, noting he acts like an old soul in a youth's body. Despite her sharp words, a cute chibi Leaping admits she still finds his presence pleasing.
Narrator notes that Xiaoyanji's wedding leave ended quickly, forcing his return to the Imperial Academy.
Before leaving for the academy, Xiaoyanji respectfully bids the dining princess a formal farewell.
Princess Liping remains silent, her face a mask of royal indifference as her husband departs.
Yanji reflects on their distant relationship, recalling how he hides his marital troubles from his mother.
During the hour of the goat, Huizhen receives a report about gifts sent from the Shao estate.
Huizhen accepts the gifts and instructs the messenger to be rewarded before checking the current time.
An attendant informs Huizhen that it is now late in the hour of the goat.
With a subtle, mysterious smile, Huizhen decides to personally pick up Yangji from his studies. The scene shifts to the bustling Imperial Academy as the afternoon sun glints off the rooftops.
Looking out from her carriage, Princess Liping arrives at the academy, drawing every student's curious gaze.
An attendant announces the princess's arrival, catching the attention of Shao Yanji and his classmates.
Yanji stands stunned by the carriage while his fellow students gossip about the royal couple's closeness. In a playful chibi moment, Yanji's friends gleefully push him toward the waiting royal carriage. Approaching the carriage, Shao Yanji wonders why the princess has come to the academy for him.
Liping claims she was just passing by, inviting her surprised husband to join her inside.
Yanji boards the carriage, his movements quick and dutiful as he follows the princess's invitation. Inside the carriage, Liping offers him snacks, asking if he is hungry after a long day. Yanji stares at the colorful tray of snacks, seemingly surprised by this rare display of kindness.
Bowing his head, Yanji offers a polite, formal thanks to the princess for her thoughtful gesture.
As Yanji eats a snack, the princess watches him, noting his refined and well-educated manners. Liping teases her husband, wondering what kind of scene it would be if he were bullied.
Shao Yanji immediately requests hot tea for the princess, focusing entirely on her comfort and needs. A relaxed Chibi Liping sips her tea, enjoying the quiet moment of their shared journey.
As evening falls, the staff asks the princess if she wants steamed crabs for their dinner.
Liping teases Yanji about his mother's constant worry, but he defends it as simple familial care.
The princess laughs at his overly cautious nature, questioning why he remains so guarded around her. Worried he has offended her, Yanji quickly apologizes, much to Liping's visible and growing frustration. Liping asks if he only married her to keep a Buddha in the house, clearly annoyed. Walking away, Liping reflects that maintaining a respectful distance might be easier than falling in love.
A servant delivers an official appointment document from the Ministry of War for the prince consort.
Liping leads Yanji outside as he looks on with a confused and curious expression.
An official presents a royal decree appointing Shao Yanji as deputy commander of the Imperial Guards.
The official praises Yanji's character while Liping watches her husband's stunned and speechless reaction.
Princess Liping commands the official to be rewarded, her eyes glinting with a secret, triumphant satisfaction.
Shao Yanji reads the document, realizing he has been granted a high military rank by the emperor.
In a comedic chibi moment, Yanji is completely flustered by the sudden weight of his appointment.
Liping reminds him that royal decrees cannot be refused, asking why he doesn't seem happy.
The princess questions if he fears this new role will negatively impact the safety of his family.
In a humorous chibi finale, Yanji compares serving the princess to worshipping a difficult, great deity. Princess Liping praises the emperor's wisdom regarding the Eastern Palace's stable succession. Liping shares her political insights as Shao Yanji listens with quiet, respectful interest.
Liping advises Yanji to focus solely on his duties without overthinking his royal position.
A serene close-up captures the princess's elegant adornments as she gazes into the distance.
The royal couple strolls through the tranquil courtyard under the blooming cherry blossom trees.
Liping questions Yanji about his honest impression of the crown prince after the Balnret. Yanji praises the crown prince's noble bearing, confirming the positive rumors he had heard. Liping leans in close, seemingly skeptical of Yanji's high regard for the future ruler.
Blushing slightly, Yanji defends his belief that the prince will be a benevolent leader.
A subtle, knowing smile touches Liping's lips as she observes her husband's unwavering sincerity.
Liping mentions rumors that Yanji caught the crown prince's eye during the royal banquet.
Yanji looks surprised as the princess probes for details about his interaction with the prince. Yanji maintains his polite stance, insisting the crown prince is simply a good-hearted person. Liping asks for justification while Yanji admits his assessment is based on pure intuition.
Leaning in provocatively, Liping challenges Yanji to compare her character to the prince's. The princess demands to know which of them he believes is the better person. Extreme close-up on Yanji's eye reveals his mounting discomfort at the princess's sudden boldness.
Yanji stammers a vague comparison as Liping stares him down with amused, sharp intensity. Liping warns that appearances are deceiving, leaving Yanji speechless and deeply conflicted by her words. In a cute chibi moment, Liping details the grueling schedule of the Imperial Guard duty. Liping realizes their new marriage will face immediate separation due to his demanding palace duties. Yanji mentions his mother's hope for grandchildren, prompting a tense, silent reaction from Lepin.
Leaping asks if Yanji resents her for keeping their marital relationship so cold and distant.
Yanji confirms he hasn't shared their secrets, earning a rare moment of the princess's respect.
With a sudden, bright smile, Leping dismisses the heavy topic and moves on gracefully. As the sun sets, a command is issued to summon a physician to the manor. Leping dines on steamed crabs in silence, her expression unreadable as she contemplates their situation.
A cute chibi Leaping teases Yanji for his lack of focus during their quiet dinner.
Leaping reflects on the irony of Yanji's dedicated efforts for a purely platonic marriage.
Yanji moves to the West Room, establishing a permanent physical distance between the newlyweds.
Standing alone, Yanji resolves to earn Leaping's favor through his improved behavior and loyalty.
Yanji reflects on his new career, starting at the Eastern Palace early the next morning.
Maids help Yanji dress while expressing concern about his demanding new role in the palace.
Yanji commands the household staff to keep the princess in a good mood during his absence. Yanji prepares to inform his parents, determined to take his career one step at a time. Under the soft candlelight, Yanji hopes for a chance to finally display his hidden talents.
A playful chibi comparison shows Yanji's bunny-like sincerity against Leaping's clever, foxy skepticism.
The morning sun rises over the palace, signaling the official start of Yanji's first day.
Yanji arrives at his post, immediately confronted by the stern and veteran Imperial Guard officers.
An attendant informs the Lord Consort that the princess hasn't woken up yet for the day.
Yanji instructs the staff to care for Leping before he officially departs for the palace. An attendant informs the waking princess that her husband has already left for his post. Finishing his breakfast, the crown prince prepares to return to his duties in the palace. Xiaoyanji offers a formal greeting to the higher-ranking commanders as he starts his shift.
Commander Liu Gang mocks Yanji's youth, questioning his worthiness for such a prestigious military rank.
Yanji stoically endures the older man's insults, keeping his gaze steady and his posture perfect.
Liu Gang demands to know if the young noble even knows how to fight effectively.
The commander suddenly hurls a spear, testing Yanji's reflexes with a swift, deadly throw. Yanji catches the flying weapon with perfect ease, stunning everyone with his incredible hidden skill. Holding the spear firmly, Yanji prepares to demonstrate his talent to the skeptical Imperial Guards. Performing a fluid spear form, Yanji displays his impressive martial arts foundation in the courtyard. The commander watches with an impressed gaze, shouting "Excellent" at the boy's sharp technique.
With a soft exhale and a swooshing sound, Yanji completes his flawless training movement.
Clapping his hands, the commander offers to personally introduce him to the other officers. Commander Liu Kang leads Yanji into the duty quarters for an official palace briefing.
Liu Kang explains the massive scale of the Eastern Palace's rotating and patrolling guard shifts.
Yanji realizes the Emperor's massive guard assignment proves his absolute trust in the future ruler.
The commander notes that the personal guards must maintain conduct that is beyond reproach.
Liu Kang encourages him to catch the prince's eye for a bright future assignment. Bowing deeply, the brown-haired young man thanks his superior for the valuable reminder. In a cheerful chibi moment, the boisterous commander celebrates his newest talented recruit. A tranquil blossom branch marks the transition as Yanji moves toward his new post. Standing tall in his official armor, Yanji carries himself with newfound military dignity.
The commander praises his martial presence, noting how well the official uniform suits him.
Time passes shortly after as the afternoon sun illuminates the serene palace garden walls. An aerial view reveals the vast grounds, including the training grounds and the lotus pond. Liu Kang warns that the areas housing the palace consorts are strictly off-limits to them. Walking side by side, the two men continue their tour through the scenic palace grounds. A brief narration clarifies that the crown prince has no concubines or wives yet. Returning to the duty room, the commander prepares to assign Yanji's official responsibilities. Over a simple meal of fish, the commander instructs Yanji to remain in the quarters.
The sound of steady footsteps on the stone path signals a change in the day's pace.
As evening falls, the commander delivers a sudden summons from the crown prince himself. Surprised, Liu Kang realizes that no other deputy commander has received such private attention. The commander reflects on the prince's direct interest in the princess's new husband. Providing final advice, the commander tells Yanji to be honest and careful before royalty. A servant leads Yanji toward the grand pavilion where the crown prince resides.
Yanji compares the grandeur of the Eastern Palace to His Majesty's main royal halls.
Close up on the young man's face as he prepares for his first private audience.
Delicate cherry blossoms sway in the breeze near the entrance of the prince's hall. A servant gestures for him to enter the ornate, high-ceilinged room. Moving across the threshold, his boots click quietly against the polished wooden floorboards. Standing alone in the vast, silent room, Yanji waits for the prince to appear. A quick click sounding interrupts the silence as a door opens in the distance. Shadows dance across the white blossoms and the hem of Yanji's blue robes.
Bright orange flowers sit elegantly in a vase, decorating the quiet, sunlit study. Standing centered on the red carpet, Yanji remains motionless under the prince's watchful gaze.
His eyes widen slightly as he realizes he has been kept waiting for a long time.
Dropping to the floor, Yanji performs a deep, formal kowtow to pay his respects.
The crown prince is revealed, watching the young man from behind a wooden screen.
Keeping his head low, Yanji remains in a posture of absolute submission and respect. A long-sleeved hand reaches out to part the beaded curtain between the two men.
The prince tells his younger sister's husband to stand up and skip the ceremony. From behind, the brown-haired youth remains still as the prince addresses him. The prince smiles, inwardly calling Yanji a fool for his excessive and stiff obedience. Standing close together, the prince's towering height contrasts with the more petite guard. The prince reflects on Yanji's sudden shift from his relaxed demeanor to formal submission.
Narrowing his eyes, the royal finds his brother-in-law's extreme distance to be quite annoying.
In a playful chibi moment, the prince asks how his first day is going. Yanji reports that General Liu and the others have taken excellent care of him today. The crown prince acknowledges Yanji's reported martial skills, while Yanji realizes the prince's watchful eyes missed nothing. Yanji humbly downplays his performance, but the prince insists the emperor already values his true potential. Intrigued by the rumors, the prince requests a private demonstration of Yanji's combat abilities right now. With a confident smile, the long-haired prince offers Yanji his own sheathed sword for the demonstration.
Yanji looks bewildered as the prince substitutes his usual spear for a sword for this performance.
The royal hand passes the weapon over, marking the beginning of their private martial engagement.
Yanji draws the blade with focused intent, ready to prove himself before his future sovereign.
Relaxing back, the prince watches with sharp, expectant eyes as the young guard begins his form. A subtle, calculating expression touches the prince's face while he assesses his brother-in-law's every move. The prince's piercing gaze remains fixed on Yanji, searching for any weakness or hidden talent.
Yanji raises the sword, his posture transforming into one of disciplined and formidable military grace.
Moving fluidly, the brown-haired youth carves through the air, his movements precise and naturally powerful. The prince inwardly praises Yanji's heroic aura, finding his character and martial spirit perfectly aligned. Watching from behind, the prince observes the sheer athleticism and fluid rhythm of Yanji's flawless technique. Intense focus fills Yanji's eyes as he pushes his skills to the limit under royal scrutiny. The prince maintains an inscrutable smile, clearly impressed by the young noble's unexpected and sharp prowess.
With a swift, powerful strike, Yanji completes a difficult sequence, the sword flashing in the light.
A sudden wave of shock hits Yanji as he realizes the intensity of the prince's observation. Immediately stopping, Yanji bows and begs for forgiveness, fearing his display was perhaps too bold. The prince remains silent, his eyes reflecting a deep and growing interest in the young man's potential.
Keeping his head low, Yanji apologizes again, while the prince looks on with a steady, unreadable gaze.
The prince rises and takes the sword, his own presence becoming suddenly and dangerously commanding. A playful yet sharp smile plays on the prince's lips as he prepares to respond personally.
Yanji looks up in genuine surprise as the prince moves with sudden, predatory martial grace.
The long-haired royal executes a breathtakingly fast maneuver, his skill far exceeding the young guard's expectations. Moving closer, the prince challenges Yanji directly, his overwhelming aura filling the entire silent room. Blades clash with a sudden metallic ring as the prince forces Yanji into an impromptu duel. The prince strikes with blinding speed, pushing Yanji onto the defensive with his superior technique. Straining to keep up, Yanji admits that the prince's swift and unfamiliar movements are completely overwhelming him. A sharp, ringing king sounds as the prince expertly locks their blades with a knowing, confident smile. With a sudden deft twist of his wrist, the prince disarms the younger man with terrifying ease.
A swift zoet sound echoes as the prince's blade precisely slices through Yanji's leather belt and robes.
Yanji stands frozen in shock, clutching his torn clothing as the prince watches him with amused intensity. Reaching out a soft exhale, the prince stands triumphantly, his gaze lingering on the flustered young guard. Yanji's face heats up with embarrassment, deeply conscious of the prince's unblinking and piercing attention. Looking down at his ruined uniform, Yanji frets over his sudden, unpresentable appearance before the future emperor. The prince's expression remains calm and superior, having thoroughly tested and humbled his newest personal guard. A close look at the prince reveals his own unruffled robes, contrasting with Yanji's disheveled state. An attendant enters the pavilion, politely requesting that the lord consort follow him to change clothes. Yanji accepts the offer with a respectful nod, eager to escape the prince's overwhelming personal presence. The servant presents a new set of high-quality robes, explaining that a replacement has already been prepared.
Yanji notices a golden Keelan pattern on the shoulder, identifying it as the prince's personal guard uniform.
In a flustered chibi moment, Yanji insists he can manage dressing himself without the eunuch's help.
The attendant confirms that the prince personally arranged for these specific servants to assist him throughout.
Yanji learns he will now be required to stay overnight within the Eastern Palace grounds indefinitely.
The young man looks stunned, realizing the prince is intentionally keeping him within very close proximity.
A cheerful chibi eunuch smiles brightly while Yanji processes the heavy implications of his new assignment.
Yanji worries that these special living arrangements violate palace rules, but he remains powerless to argue.
In a cute chibi panel, Yanji realizes the servants are merely following orders and shouldn't be blamed.
Later in the main hall, the prince reads peacefully, awaiting Yanji's return in his new official uniform.
The long-haired prince watches as Yanji bows deeply, addressing him with quiet authority.
Smiling, the prince asks if his new guard is satisfied with the special quarters.
Yanji clasps his hands, humbly arguing that he should be treated like any other guard. Maintaining intense eye contact, the prince listens as Yanji calls the arrangement inappropriate.
The royal questions if Yanji truly understands the high-level intentions behind his new proximity.
Yanji tries to protest further, but the prince insists he use the private guard room. Because he is the princess's husband, the prince refuses to let Yanji stay with commoners.
Bowing his head in submission, Yanji finally accepts the crown prince's overwhelming generosity. The prince orders a meal, while a chibi Yanji politely tries to excuse himself.
A heavy silence falls as the prince watches his new guard with an unreadable expression.
Stopping him with a single word, the prince commands Yanji to stay for dinner.
The prince flashes a charming smile, inviting his stunned brother-in-law to dine together. Stunned, Yanji argues that such a gesture for a palace worker violates strict protocols.
In a flustered chibi moment, Yanji is forced into a seat by the prince's command.
Leaning in close, the prince asserts that his word is the only rule in this palace.
The prince maintains his dominant presence, leaving Yankee overwhelmed by their sudden physical proximity.
His gaze turning soft yet piercing, the royal asks if Yanji truly fears him that much.
Thoughts of past flirtations cross the prince's mind as he watches the younger man's reaction. Recalling the princess's words about imperfection, Yanji looks on with a contemplative expression.
Yanji ponders his wife's hidden meanings while remaining under the prince's watchful eyes.
Reaching out, the prince gently touches Yanji's ear, questioning the depth of his fear.
Yanji's eyes widen in shock as he reacts to the sudden, intimate royal touch.
Straining to remain professional, Yanji clasps his hands tightly to hide his mounting nerves. The prince dismisses the need for formalities, urging Yanji to simply relax and eat. In a flustered chibi state, Yanji worries about his unrefined manners before his superior.
Despite keeping his head low, Yanji feels the prince's intense, focused gaze throughout the meal.
The evening continues as the prince reaches for an ornate pitcher to pour some wine. Looking up, Yanji finds the prince still observing him with a strange, calculative interest. The prince finds Yanji's stiff, constant movements tiring and insists he remain seated.
Close-up on the prince's lavender eyes as he assesses the younger man's every hesitation.
Yanji cites his guard duties to avoid drinking, but the prince offers a welcoming cup. The two men share a quiet toast beneath the blossoms as the atmosphere softens. Noting Yanji's low tolerance, the prince kindly advises him to drink the wine slowly. Blushing slightly, Yanji thanks the future emperor for showing such unexpected and personal consideration. Close-up on Yanji's uniformed arm, highlighting his role as the prince's personal protector. A small, satisfied smile touches the prince's lips as he watches his plan unfold.
Yanji's eyes reflect his inner turmoil as he struggles to navigate this intimate royal encounter.
Reciprocating the care, Yanji suggests the prince should also drink less for his health. A determined chibi Yanji explains that the prince's well-being is precious and must be protected. Amused, the prince thanks his brother-in-law and urges him to eat ma food. The conversation shifts as the prince asks about the reality of Yanji's 10-day marriage. The prince cites intuition as his reason for doubting if Yanji is the princess's type. Yanji reflects on the princess's past insults, admitting her words were often filled with disdain. In a pained chibi moment, arrows strike Yanji's heart as he mentions their separate chambers. Despite the cold marriage, Yanji vows to stay dedicated to fulfilling his duties as a husband. The prince listens in silence, his expression softening as he hears Yanji's honest admissions. Looking regal and serene, the prince maintains his focus on the brown-haired youth's confession. Yanji speaks with vulnerable honesty, his lips moving as he reveals his domestic struggles. The prince asks if Yanji likes the princess for herself, regardless of her status. Watching with an inscrutable smile, the prince waits for the young man's true feelings.
Yanji remains silent, his expression clouded with sweat and hesitation under the prince's gaze.
Yanji admits his brief 10-day marriage lacks the depth expected of a traditional union.
Imagining the princess, Yanji recalls his mother's wishes for a harmonious lineage and family.
Clutching his robe, Yanji reveals his simple desire for a peaceful, loving household with children. The young guard ponders the true meaning of marital joy and affection among ordinary people.
A vision of domestic bliss appears as Yanji yearns for a life of shared warmth. Yanji struggles to balance etiquette and intimacy with a royal wife who feels distant. The princess looks on coldly, leaving Yanji to worry about their fragile, uncertain bond.
Standing alone, Yanji's back reflects his isolation and the weight of his difficult role. Feeling inadequate, Yanji sighs, certain that his every attempt to bridge the gap is wrong.
As the prince drinks, Yanji admits his honest confusion regarding the princess's earlier questions.
Amused, the prince laughs at Yanji's lack of worldly enlightenment while they share wine.
In a flustered chibi moment, Yanji clutches his wine cup awkwardly under royal scrutiny. Under a blossoming night sky, the prince promises that Yanji will eventually understand life's complexities. Drinking more, Yanji's face flushes a deep, telling crimson as the alcohol takes hold.
A cup is set down as the intimate atmosphere between the men grows increasingly tense.
The prince's sharp lavender eyes observe Yanji's growing intoxication and mounting vulnerability. Startled, Yanji reacts to the prince's sudden encroaching presence in the moonlit pavilion.
A quick troot sounds as Yanji's cup slips from his numb fingers onto the table.
Gasping in shock, Yanji finds his hands caught firmly by the future emperor's steady grip. Spinning from the wine, Yanji blushes deeply, his composure crumbling under the physical contact.
Reaching out, the prince places a firm, dominant hand upon Yanji's silk-covered waist.
The prince supports the guard, drawing him into a close embrace beneath the lanterns. Leaning in, the prince whispers into Yanji's ear, point-blankly observing the young man's drunkenness. Yanji remains frozen in embarrassment as the prince's overwhelming physical presence traps him. The prince commands Yanji to remain still, his hand tightening its possessive hold. Above the quiet palace, a silver moon hangs over the roof, illuminating their secret encounter. Smiling triumphantly, the prince leans in toward the blushing guard, whose heart is racing. Yanji closes his eyes, his face a mask of scarlet shame and confusion.
Stammering, Yanji tries to excuse himself, urging the prince to retire for the night.
The prince watches him with a calculative gaze, ignoring the request to end the evening.
Dazed, Yanji wonders if the prince himself has finally become intoxicated from the wine.
The prince sharply questions what would happen if he refused the guard's request to leave.
Yanji blushes, surprised by the prince's unexpectedly bold and dangerously playful personality. A smug, knowing smile plays on the future emperor's lips as he maintains his dominance.
The prince reveals he was the one who personally requested Yanji's assignment to his palace.
Yanji admits he cannot fathom the high-level intentions behind the royal order to serve. The prince insists that Yanji is smart enough to see his true, deeper feelings. Stunned, Yanji hears the prince declare a direct and shocking desire for him personally.
Bowing low, Yanji desperately argues that the prince must be speaking through the wine.
Lifting Yanji's chin, the prince challenges the guard's fearful reaction to his bold advances.
The prince asserts that everything belonging to the princess is now his to claim.
He questions Yanji's earlier gratitude, wondering why the guard is now resisting his affection.
Maintaining the chin lift, the prince dominates the kneeling, flustered man in the silent room.
The prince reminds Yanji of the absolute power of a ruler's word over life. He commands Yanji to remove his clothes, leaving the young guard speechless and trembling.
His heart pounds rhythmically as Yanji's nerves reach a peak under the prince's gaze.
Hesitating, Yanji's hand trembles as he slowly reaches for the belt of his uniform.
The prince watches intently as his new guard begins to obey the humiliating royal command.
Utterly humbled, Yanji kneels and surrenders to the prince's overwhelming and personal authority.
The prince's lavender eyes widen in genuine shock as he watches Yanji's reaction.
Noticing blood on the white silk, the prince sharply commands his guard to stand.
Yanji hangs his head in shame, his face flushed with pained, deep-seated embarrassment. A sudden bop sounds as the prince seizes Yanji's arm, preventing his hasty retreat. The prince questions why Yanji would injure himself on shards just to prove loyalty. Wincing, Yanji avoids eye contact while the prince remains in his personal space. Insisting on care, the prince tells Yanji to sit and calls for the physician. The prince shouts an urgent order for the royal physician to attend to them. Sitting close, the prince prepares to personally attend to the guard's bleeding knee.
When Yanji tries to protest, the prince coldly orders him to remain silent.
The prince firmly presses a cloth against the wound, focusing entirely on the injury. Leaning in, the prince notes that hurting oneself is a poor way to resist him.
Yanji looks away, his expression pensive beneath the branch of a white-blossomed tree.
The prince's lavender gaze sharpens with a calculative and predatory intensity.
He declares that Yang is now his person and must accept this new reality.
Yang refuses to be a favorite, but the prince laughs at his naive assumption.
Maintaining his regal composure, the prince watches the younger man's internal struggle.
In a chibi moment, the prince asserts his dominance over the stunned and confused guard.
Yang admits his shock, having never expected the future emperor to act so ruthlessly.
The prince shamelessly admits to using his royal power to force Yanji's total submission.
Hands continue to work on the wound, highlighting the prince's obsessive and personal care.
The prince warns that the princess would give Yanji away like a common gift. Yanji's eyes reflect his mounting dread as the prince deconstructs his sense of duty.
Bowing his head, Yanji admits he cannot disobey despite his own heart's resistance.
The struggle between royal command and personal will leaves Yanji visibly shaken and silent.
The prince asks what kind of wife Yanji truly desired before this arranged marriage.
Yanji describes an ideal woman who is gentle, considerate, and dedicated to a family. Shadows of traditional wives appear as Yanji reflects on the simple life he lost.
He realizes that his feelings for another man would defy every established moral norm.
Looking magnificent in his robes, the prince stands as an inescapable force of nature.
Flowers frame the prince as he observes Yanji's quiet, submissive descent into his control.
Accepting the inevitable, Yanji utters his understanding of the prince's overwhelming and absolute will.
A close-up on Yanji's white robe shows his readiness to serve despite his turmoil.
The royal physician arrives and assures the prince that the guard's injury is minor.
In a chibi moment, the physician explains the treatment needed to prevent permanent scarring.
Yanji wonders why a great ruler would care about the scars of a soldier. Lifting Yanji's chin, the prince playfully notes how much the guard fears his bullion.
A soft rustle sounds as the prince's fingers brush against Yanji's cheek in intimacy.
The prince offers a charming, triumphant smile before dismissing his guard for the night.
Looking on with a satisfied gaze, the royal watches Yanji's every retreating movement. The prince orders Yanji to rest and refrain from duty if the pain continues.
Stunned by the unexpected kindness, Yanji offers a formal and grateful royal thank you.
Yanji looks down, the prince's lingering touch still burning against his skin like fire.
Bowing deeply, Yanji finally takes his leave while the prince watches from the shadows.
A servant arrives with tea, finding the prince still deep in his dark thoughts. The prince commands his staff to treat Yanji with the utmost care and respect. With a final wave of his hand, the royal dismisses everyone to be alone.
Above the eastern palace, the night sky hangs heavy with unspoken secrets and tension.
A close-up on Yanji's belt shows him standing firm despite his inner emotional chaos.
A long pew escapes a chibi Yanji as he finally breathes after the encounter.
Yanji stares at the open chests, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of royal gifts.
A flustered chibi Yanji worries that refusing the crown prince's offerings would be disrespectful.
Trembling in a chibi moment, the guard struggles to process the prince's intense personal favor.
Looking at the silk, Yanji learns the gifts are styled specifically for the crown princess.
Distant and cautious, Yanji orders the servant to move the unopened chests to storage. The night passes quietly over the palace roofs, and a new day begins.
Under the blooming trees, Yanji prepares for his scheduled rotation as the palace guard. 2 armored guards greet Yanji with deep respect, acknowledging his high status as young master. Bowing his head, Yanji solemnly accepts the weight of his new royal command.
After the eunuch departs, Yanji offers a few firm words of encouragement to the guards.
The atmosphere remains professional as Yanji oversees the transition between the rotating guard shifts. An attendant arrives suddenly, informing Yanji that the crown prince has summoned him immediately.
Yanji's expression hardens with resolve as he prepares for another confrontation with the prince. His footsteps firmly onto the stone path, signaling his arrival at the royal pavilion.
Standing beneath white blossoms, Yanji maintains a stoic front despite his internal emotional turmoil.
The prince invites Yanji to sit, offering a meal in an unusually casual gesture.
Watching intently, the prince's lavender eyes search for any sign of resistance in his guard.
Yanji offers a formal bow, hesitating before accepting the prince's invitation to dine together. The prince observes the guard's stiff posture, while Yanji stares down at the untouched food.
Asked about his rest, Yanji remains guarded, unable to forget the prince's earlier bold advances.
Yanji expresses formal gratitude, though his heart is still racing from the prince's proximity. The prince notes Yanji's early start, surprising the guard with his knowledge of his schedule.
In a chibi moment, the prince tells Yanji to relax and enjoy the small talk.
The prince calls him a fool, masking his growing affection behind a facade of royal teasing.
A piece of meat is shared, further blurring the lines between guard and master.
The prince outlines the strict daily routine of the court and his personal study sessions.
Yanji argues that he deserves no special treatment, clinging to his identity as a soldier.
The prince reminds him of his authority, demanding Yanji act as his personal guard commander.
Ordering him to stay behind, the prince prepares to depart for his official duties alone.
Yanji watches the prince's departure, his gaze reflecting a complex mix of duty and dread.
His hand trembles as he sets down his bowl, the prince's influence lingering in the room.
Determined, Yanji insists that protecting the prince is his sacred duty, regardless of personal fatigue.
A chibi prince warns him not to force himself beyond his physical and mental limits.
Bowing in a chibi moment, Yanji obediently accepts the royal instruction to prioritize his health. The sun climbs higher over the palace as the early morning hours pass into day.
Standing firm at his post, Yanji watches as the prince moves through the palace grounds.
Time slips away into the afternoon, yet the dedicated guard remains rooted in his place.
The prince returns, questioning why the young master has been standing guard for so long. In a chibi panel, servants report that Yanji stubbornly refused to rest during his shift.
The prince looks on with a complicated expression, moved by Yanji's unwavering and silent devotion.
With a quiet rustle, the prince steps back into the study, his thoughts still on Yanji.
A black-haired official mocks Yanji's stubbornness, calling the deputy commander a fool for his dedication.
A sharp tsk escapes the prince, who is clearly annoyed by the official's dismissive remarks. Sipping his tea, the prince listens as the official admits that Yanji shows great promise.
The prince defends Yanji's character, acknowledging his foolishness while praising his irreproachable moral core.
In a chibi moment, the royal warns that even a dedicated guard must understand his limits. The official mentions the prince's secret medical care for Yanji, exposing his hidden protective side.
Realizing the prince's true intentions, the official watches the royal's obsessive focus on the guard.
A heavy row sounds as rain suddenly begins to pour over the palace's tiled roofs.
The prince gazes into the storm, his lavender eyes cold and calculating beneath the downpour.
Young Yanji informs his father he's stepping out, receiving a distracted hum in reply. Rain begins falling over the palace grounds as a man watches from the doorway.
Yanji stands resolutely in the downpour, leading his fellow guards despite the freezing rain.
Drenched and determined, Yanji maintains a stoic posture as water streams down his face.
The prince observes the guard's stubbornness with a gaze full of sharp, calculating intent.
An attendant shields the prince with an umbrella as he approaches the soaked guard. Kneeling in the mud, Yanji respectfully asks if His Highness has any specific instructions. The prince scolds Yanji for his foolishness and not seeking shelter from the storm. Yanji argues that as leader, he must maintain his credibility by standing with his men.
Amused by the guard's defiance, the prince notes that Yanji has learned to talk back.
A messenger arrives to grant the prince permission to return to his palace chambers first.
In a chibi thought, Yanji is told to proceed as the rain continues falling steadily.
A narrative note explains that only the prince remained sheltered while others suffered outside.
Inside, Yanji begins to address the prince, his voice faltering as they reach seclusion. The prince demands to know why Yanji disregarded the doctor's orders to stay dry. The prince turns away, leaving a blushing Yanji to grapple with his intense concern.
Insisting it is daylight, the prince commands Yanji to change out of his soaked clothes.
Yanji protests, begging to return to the side hall to change in private instead.
In a chibi moment, the prince teases Yanji's miserable appearance as the guard admits fault.
The prince orders him behind a screen, promising to look away while he changes.
Trembling slightly, Yanji begins to undo his soaked collar in the dim palace light.
He sheds his wet outer robes, his silhouette visible through the translucent room divider.
From the other side, the prince watches the guard's silhouette with a focused gaze.
The prince reflects on the alluring charm cast by Yanji's shadow against the screen.
Yanji peeks out from behind the screen, looking vulnerable and deeply uncertain of everything.
A close-up reveals Yanji's wide blue eyes as he observes the prince's silent presence.
The prince watches him with a gaze that is both possessive and dangerously intense. Seeing the guard's damp hair, the prince suggests he let it down for comfort.
Yanji hesitates, preferring to stay hidden behind the screen to avoid the prince's scrutiny. In a chibi panel, Yanji is startled by a hand reaching toward his hidden position.
The silhouettes of the two men stand close together as tension mounts rapidly indoors.
A sudden, firm bop sounds as the prince seizes Yanji's hand in a tight grip.
Yanji is pushed into a seat, staring up at the prince in wide-eyed shock.
A resonant swoosh sounds as the prince begins to untie Yanji's hair ribbon. Closing his eyes, the prince takes charge of the guard's appearance with deliberate care.
Yanji frets that letting his hair down is improper, especially before the obsessive prince.
His heart races as he feels the prince's proximity, his face flushing a deep red.
The prince's hands move toward his shoulders, further closing the distance between them.
Yanji blushes furiously as the prince holds his long hair, taking control of the moment. A smug, triumphant smile touches the prince's lips as he admires the flustered guard. The prince's ornate robes shimmer as he maintains his dominant position over the seated Yanji. A gentle touch brushes Yanji's ear, making the guard flinch from the sudden intimacy.
The prince mocks Yanji's embarrassment while the guard struggles to maintain his failing dignity.
Pulling Yanji close, the prince whispers his desire to return to their private quarters.
The prince's hand lingers near the guard's neck, a possessive gesture that silences Yanji.
Yanji looks down with a pained blush, trapped by the prince's overwhelming physical presence. An attendant interrupts to announce the physician's arrival, and the prince orders a checkup.
Yanji feels a surge of relief as the sudden interruption breaks the stifling tension.
The pale moon hangs over the quiet side chamber as evening shadows deepen. A soft ha sounds as Yanji exhales, his face still burning from the prince's touch.
Yanji collapses in bed, his feverish state becoming truly unbearable.
An attendant enters the room, his face filled with immediate concern.
A gentle hand rests on Yanji's shoulder as the attendant urges him to wake.
Feverish and shivering, Yanji remains trapped in his illness as help arrives.
A frantic shout echoes through the halls, demanding the imperial physician be summoned immediately.
Yanji weakly opens his eyes, his vision blurred by the intensity of his fever. The crown prince stands over him, his lavender eyes clouded with uncharacteristic worry.
Sensing Yanji's attempt to move, the prince firmly orders him to stay still.
Flushed and trembling, Yanji tries to speak, but the prince commands his absolute silence. The prince remains at his side, his stoic expression masking deep, underlying frustration. He commands the physician to repeat the diagnosis so the guard understands his condition. Looking down with a heavy gaze, the prince focuses entirely on the ailing man.
In a chibi moment, the prince scolds Yanji for ignoring such a serious illness.
The prince generously offers his own supply of medicine to ensure Yanji's swift recovery. Overwhelmed by the royal kindness, Yanji offers a weak and breathless word of thanks. A faint, satisfied smile touches the prince's lips as he watches his guard.
Reaching out, the prince's fingers brush Yanji's heated skin, sending a jolt through him.
A sharp tisk sounds as the prince observes Yanji's continued struggle with his fever.
Startled by a sudden sounding, the prince and Yanji look toward the door.
His gaze remains sharp and calculating, even while tending to the sick man's needs.
The prince reveals that Yanji's fever went unnoticed until this very morning.
Yanji defends his fellow guards in a chibi moment, claiming the fault is his.
The prince stares down at him, unmoved by the guard's attempt to take blame. Despite Yanji's pleas, the prince decrees a light punishment for the negligent staff.
An attendant delivers the medicine, and the prince announces it is time for treatment.
A rhythmic gulp sounds as the dark, bitter medicine is prepared for the patient.
Startled by the prince's proximity, Yanji sits up suddenly as the medicine is offered.
He winces at the foul taste, drinking the brew with a visible, pained effort. Noting the guard's reaction, the prince asks if the medicinal brew is too bitter.
In a chibi panel, the prince teases Yanji for trying to maintain his stoicism.
The prince tilts Yanji's chin upward, his touch firm yet strangely intimate.
Yanji's eyes widen in confusion, searching the prince's face for his true intentions.
In a surprising gesture, the prince offers a piece of candy to dull the bitterness. Stunned by the unexpected sweetness, Yanji offers another formal and flustered royal thanks.
A chibi prince orders Yanji to rest and be good while he attends duties.
A final, lingering touch on his forehead leaves Yanji's heart racing as the prince leaves. The prince's commanding voice echoes, telling the guard to remain still and recover.
The bright sky above signals the passage of time as Yanji slowly heals.
A few days later, the prince appears on horseback, looking regal under the trees.
Yanji reflects on the prince's constant presence during his recovery, unable to avoid him.
In a chibi sequence, Yanji realizes the prince's schedule is exhausting and relentless.
A sharp ha rings out as the prince begins his daily martial arts practice.
A resonant swoosh sounds as the prince releases a perfect arrow from horseback.
Watching from the sidelines, Yanji is genuinely awed by the prince's incredible skill. The prince admits his natural physical weaknesses, noting the effort required for mastery.
With the practice concluded, the prince stands tall beside his silent, watchful guard.
A soft tap sounds as the prince touches Yanji, suggesting it is time to return.
Startled by the sudden contact, Yanji's breath hitches as he looks at his master.
He offers a quiet acknowledgement as the evening shadows begin to stretch over them. As night falls, the scene shifts to a quiet game of Go within the palace.
While playing Go, Yanji is distracted by an admiring memory of the prince's physical strength.
Sensing his guard's distraction, the prince leans in and asks what he is thinking about. Startled by the sudden question, Yanji looks up with a flustered and bewildered expression. The prince maintains a steady, intense gaze, scrutinizing his guard's every reaction during their game.
The prince asks if Yanji's focus is slipping because of his upcoming day off at home.
Lavender eyes narrow as the prince continues to observe Yanji's visible unease and internal conflict. Shifting the conversation, the prince inquires if the prince consort has fully recovered from his illness.
Reaching out, the prince's fingers brush against Yanji's collar in a slow, deliberate movement.
The prince's hand slides further up, his thumb grazing the sensitive skin of Yanji's neck. Yanji freezes in shock, his eyes wide as he registers the prince's bold and intimate touch. The prince asks a pointed, daring question about whether Yanji understands the intimacies between spouses.
Sweat beads on Yanji's forehead as he recalls the princess asking him that same difficult question.
Looking away in shame, Yanji offers a quiet denial, unable to meet the prince's penetrating gaze.
A sly, triumphant smile touches the prince's lips as he watches the guard's composure crumble completely. The prince's gaze remains fixed on Yanji, seemingly satisfied by the guard's obvious and mounting distress. The prince notes that Yanji and Princess Luoping haven't yet consummated their formal royal marriage. Yanji claims a personal condition is the cause, begging the prince to keep the secret private.
Dismissing the excuse, the prince asserts that Luoping simply doesn't like or want to share space.
Yanji looks down with a pained expression, his face flushed red from the prince's harsh honesty.
The prince gazes intensely at him, silently reflecting on his own growing, obsessive duty to protect.
Suddenly, the prince's hand shoots out, firmly gripping Yanji's arm to keep him from pulling away.
With a sharp movement, the prince pulls Yanji toward him, completely upending the quiet game board. White and black ghost stones scatter across the floor as the prince's sudden aggression breaks the silence. A sudden, quick thump sounds as the prince pulls Yanji into a powerful and unexpected embrace. Yanji's hand clenches at the prince's robes as he is held close in the sudden, intense confrontation. Pulling Yanji onto his lap, the prince commands him to stay still, declaring his personal need.
The prince nuzzles against Yanji's neck, whispering that the princess's lack of insight is his luck.
A muffled sounds as Yanji struggles weakly against the prince's overwhelming and forceful physical proximity.
A soft moan sounds as the prince presses his face into the sensitive crook of Yanji's neck.
The prince's lips brush the guard's skin, his actions becoming increasingly possessive and dangerously intimate.
Looking down with burning intensity, the prince struggles against a powerful, growing desire to fully possess. The prince licks the skin of Yanji's neck, further marking the guard as his own prize. Yanji looks away with a pained, tearful blush, trapped between his duty and the prince's advances. The prince decides to stop for now, noting that there is still plenty of time ahead. A satisfied smile remains on the prince's face as he observes the mark he left behind.
He tells Yanji to be good and let the princess see the mark on his neck tomorrow.
The scene shifts to the next morning at the quiet, sunlit residence of the royal princess.
Yanji stands alone in the courtyard, his hand instinctively covering the mark hidden beneath his high collar.
Approaching the princess, Yanji offers a formal greeting and asks if she has been well lately.
Despite his efforts to hide it, the dark mark on Yanji's neck remains visible to close observers.
Princess Luoping expresses concern, noting that Yanji appears to have lost a significant amount of weight. Flustered, Yanji defends his time at the Eastern Palace, insisting he has been treated quite well. The princess watches him with growing suspicion, her sharp eyes searching for the source of his anxiety.
Yanji quickly claims his pale appearance is merely the result of a recently recovered common head cold.
Unconvinced, the princess reaches out, her hand moving toward the collar Yanji is desperately trying to hide.
She firmly commands him to stay still as she pulls the fabric aside to investigate the mark.
Her eyes widen in shock as she spots the clear, intimate bite mark on her husband's neck. Realizing the truth, the princess asks with horror if Yanji was forced into this intimate encounter.
She knows Yanji is too honest to lie, making the visual evidence of his struggle even more pained.
Looking him directly in the eyes, the princess asks if the crown prince was the one responsible. The crown prince eyes his guard with a smug, knowing look of triumph. Luoping reveals the princess's long-standing competitive nature and obsession with her possessions. To Yanji's utter shock, the princess suggests yielding to the prince's overwhelming will.
She explains that confronting the crown prince is impossible given her political vulnerability.
A gentle stroke sounds as the princess carefully adjusts and smooths his ruffled collar.
Her gaze softens as she asks if he feels wronged by the prince's actions. Yanji remains silent, the weight of his impossible situation pressing down on him. He opens his mouth to speak, but the words fail him in the moment. Yanji insists he doesn't want the prince, yet Luoping notes the prince's obvious care. He desperately clings to his identity as a husband, citing his royal marriage.
The princess looks away, her expression unreadable as she considers the messy truth.
She decides to ignore the matter, maintaining the status quo for their shared safety.
Turning her back, Luoping warns him not to take the situation to heart.
Alone among the bamboo, Yanji reflects on the shame and confusion of his position.
He offers a formal bow, quietly thanking the princess for her unexpected mercy.
Bright flowers bloom, signaling a shift in time and perspective within the palace grounds.
A quiet moment of tea and reflection precedes the return of the evening shadows.
The pale moon rises over the palace roofs, marking the end of the day.
In a chibi moment, Yanji wishes the princess a restful night before departing.
Luoping offers a final piece of advice: resist if the prince's advances become unbearable.
A quiet nod follows as Yanji takes her suggestion to heart while she sips.
His blue eyes narrow with resolve as he prepares to return to the prince. Preparing for duty, Yanji meticulously adjusts his guard uniform and sleeves for the day.
Arriving at the Eastern Palace, he feels relieved that the prince is attending court.
A chibi attendant delivers a sudden summons from the prince to the training grounds.
A resonant swoosh sounds as a sharp arrow slices through the bright morning air.
Yanji is startled by the arrow's speed as he arrives at the archery range.
He watches the prince from afar, genuinely impressed by the royal's exceptional martial prowess. Yanji offers a formal greeting as the prince prepares to fire his next shot. The prince's gaze is sharp and demanding as he questions Yanji's recent avoidance.
In a chibi panel, Yanji admits he feared disturbing his master's busy royal schedule. A sharp thump sounds as the arrow strikes the very center of the target.
The prince questions the sincerity of Yanji's excuse with a cold and calculating stare. Tension crackles between them as they lock eyes across the sun-drenched training grounds.
The prince notes with disappointment that his guard is no longer as honest as before.
Dismissing the awkward tension, the prince turns away to focus on his archery event.
He begins to recount a childhood memory of a persistent fool who loved archery.
In a chibi flashback, a young Yanji struggles with a bow far too large. Shocked realization dawns on Yanji as he recognizes the shared past the prince describes.
A final resonant thump sounds as the prince confirms he was that childhood playmate.
Yanji stares in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the revelation of their long-forgotten connection.
A rhythmic gulp sounds as the sick young boy drinks his medicine while recovering. A soft cough sounds as the medicine's bitterness catches the young patient's throat.
His eyes sparkle with excitement as he hears news of a visitor waiting outside.
The young Yanji runs eagerly through the sunlit courtyard to meet his only playmate. He waves enthusiastically, shouting a joyful greeting to the boy he calls Brother Zen. The young prince offers his hand, welcoming the boy into his secluded royal world.
Surprised by the sudden warmth, the young guard-to-be looks at his royal friend.
A silent headshake follows as the young boy prioritizes his daily archery practice. The young prince offers a charming, determined smile as he suggests they play together.
A childhood promise is made to visit the market and practice archery together.
Narrative text recalls Brother Zen's daily dedication to study and martial arts training. Flashbacks depict a kind Brother Zen taking the young child to forbidden market festivities. Joyful laughter fills the air as Brother Zen playfully spins the young guard around. The young guard struggles with a bow while Brother Zen watches with focused intensity. Brother Zen calls out to Yanning as the young guard huffs from physical exertion. Half a year later, Brother Zen departs with a promise to return for Yanning. Tears well in the young guard's eyes as he bids his childhood companion farewell. Seasons pass without news, leaving the young guard alone in the cold winter snow. Hope slowly fades as the guard longs for the return of his childhood friend.
10 years later, Yanji realizes the crown prince is the very boy he once knew.
Yanji stands before his master, the weight of their shared past hanging between them. The prince gazes out, his presence commanding and far removed from his younger self. Panels highlight the prince's firm grip on the bow as Yanji looks on in surprise. The prince stands close behind Yanji, his height and presence completely overwhelming the guard. A sharp gaze from the prince monitors Yanji's every movement during their archery session. Yanji admits the prince's heavy bow is nearly impossible for him to draw properly. Tension rises as the prince's face moves close to the guard's blushing features. Guiding Yanji's hands, the prince commands him to focus and aim the arrow carefully. Yanji's heart races in the silence as the prince's presence becomes overwhelmingly intimate.
A sharp shot sounds as they release the arrow, their combined strength guiding the flight.
Surprised, Yanji watches as the arrow strikes the center of the bullseye perfectly. In a chibi moment, the prince decides it is time to return to the palace. They arrive at the Eastern Palace's inner hall as the evening sun begins to set. The prince commands Yanji to enter the private chamber, his tone casual yet authoritative.
Yangji is mortified to find the prince half undressed, his face flushing a deep red.
Turning away in haste, the guard tries to maintain his composure and professional decorum.
The prince teases him for being too shy to look while he changes clothes.
Stepping closer, the prince demands that the guard look him in the eye while speaking.
Yanji is pulled into the prince's personal space, his eyes wide with sudden shock.
A subtle, satisfied smile plays on the prince's lips as he holds the guard close.
The prince notes with smug amusement that the guard actually obeyed his command this time.
Breathless and flustered, Yangji struggles to address his highness while trapped in his gaze. The prince teases that Yanji's vulnerable expression makes him very easy to bully.
Dismissing the tension, the prince invites the guard to share a private dinner together. The prince tenderly feeds Yanji soup, mirroring their childhood bond in a quiet moment.
The prince explains he ordered special nourishment to improve the guard's thin and frail body.
He lectures Yanji for secretly stopping his medicine as a child, hindering his own recovery.
Reflecting on the past, the prince misses the liveliness Yanji possessed before becoming so stiff.
The prince admits he persevered with martial training despite his own dislike of medicinal brews.
He warns that neglecting his health could lead to difficulty fathering children in the future.
Panicked, the guard cites his mother's previous medical advice to deny the prince's claims. The prince points out that Yanji hasn't even consummated his marriage with Lady Luo Ping. A heavy silence falls as the prince confesses his own hidden desires to the guard.
The prince's purple eyes narrow with a mixture of longing and possessive royal intent.
He admits with a grim expression that his desired person was taken by another first.
Yangji reminds him of his duty to produce heirs, but the prince questions royal traditions.
The prince reflects on the stability of the realm versus his own personal forbidden wants.
He dismisses the need for more heirs, noting the imperial family already has many sons.
Yanji offers jars of fine wine from home, hoping to shift the evening's heavy mood.
The prince gently instructs Yanji to drink the soup first as they sit together.
A chibi Yanji chugs the bowl dry, finishing with a satisfied, soft pew. Yanji serves a tray of wine, his expression stoic despite the prince's intense gaze.
The prince pours clear wine into a cup, blossoms framing the quiet evening scene.
He reminisces about drinking this wine as children, though Yanji finds the memories embarrassing. Yanji sits nervously, his face flushing as the prince brings up their shared past.
The prince's purple eyes narrow slightly as he questions why the memories are shameful.
He notes with a touch of melancholy that perhaps he is the only one remembering.
Drinking deeply, the prince remains a moody contrast to the carefree boy Yanji once knew. Yanji reflects on the rigid decorum he must now maintain before his royal master.
He mourns the loss of his old friend, replaced by the calculating crown prince.
The prince recalls his childhood promise to find Yanji, his gaze full of unspoken longing.
Yanji looks away, his heart heavy with the impossible weight of their tangled history.
Stealing his resolve, Yanji reaches for his cup to drink alongside his highness.
The prince teases him about getting drunk, but Yanji insists on taking just one cup.
A soft smile touches the prince's lips as he calls the guard truly stubborn.
A resonant kang sounds as their wine cups meet in a sharp, formal toast.
Flashbacks reveal a young Yanji clinging tightly to the prince's hand during a restless sleep.
In a chibi moment, the young guard begs the prince not to laugh at him. The prince's eyes soften, filled with an affection that spans across their many years apart. He notes that Yanji was far more lovable before he learned such distant, formal words. Yanji drinks but is startled when the prince's hand suddenly seizes his wrist. A rhythmic thud sounds as Yanji's cup spills, his heart racing in sudden shock. The prince pulls him forward, forcing Yanji to meet his intense and demanding gaze. Tension peaks as the prince leans in, his hand gripping Yanji's collar with possessive force. Trembling, Yanji begs for forgiveness for his lack of decorum during their intimate meal.
The prince grants his forgiveness with a smug smile, drawing the guard even closer.
Yanji freezes as the prince's hand moves to his hair, closing the final distance. He is pulled into a firm embrace, the prince's touch lingering near his flushed face.
Tears well in Yanji's blue eyes as the prince's proximity becomes overwhelmingly intimate.
Yanji's hand shakes against the prince's robes, caught in a moment of pure vulnerability.
A soft shh sounds as the prince commands silence, leaning in for a kiss. The prince sweeps Yanji off his feet, carrying him toward the shadows of the bed.
He confesses that his search for Yanji never wavered despite the political turmoil at court. The prince admits he couldn't stand the thought of Yanji marrying into another's family. He presses a kiss against Yanji's neck, his voice thick with years of repressed desire. Yanji protests his intentions, but the prince rejects the idea they were mere playmates.
Flushed and breathless, Yanji stares up at the man who has claimed his life.
The prince tells him to simply close his eyes if he cannot bear the sight.
Yanji desperately cites his royal marriage as a reason to stop this forbidden advance.
The prince ignores his pleas, leaning down to claim the guard's lips once more. A soft kiss sounds as the prince's lips brush against Yanji's in a demanding gesture. Yanji squeezes his eyes shut, his face burning with a mixture of fear and arousal.
He gasps out a desperate denial as the prince pins him against the silk pillows.
The prince looms over him, declaring that Yanji will not be getting away this time. A soft kiss sounds as the prince continues his relentless, possessive pursuit of the guard. He commands Yanji to open his mouth, his purple eyes flashing with dark royal authority.
A soft huff sounds as they lie together, the morning light filtered through the blossoms.
A soft kiss sounds as the prince questions why Yanji is crying over their intimacy. Yanji insists it is not enough, even as he remains trapped in the prince's arms.
The prince opens a small box, asking if the medicinal scent within is pleasant.
Tenderly, the prince brings his fingers to the blushing guard's face and a lingering touch.
The prince praises the imperial medicine's quality while the guard looks away with troubled eyes.
A soft, breathy sounds as they lie together in the intimate, dimly lit chamber.
Watching the sleeping guard, the prince reflects with regret on having pushed his beloved too far.
The prince carries the unconscious guard, ordering his attendants to clean the chamber immediately.
Shifting to the bathroom, water splashes as the guard awakens, startled by the prince's close proximity.
The guard's heart races with deep embarrassment as he finds himself bare and intimate with his master.
In a chibi moment, the fox-eared prince tells the bunny-eared guard that resistance is futile.
Looking back at their night, the prince notes the guard's silent endurance during the unbearable process. Calling him Yanning, the prince embraces the guard, sensing his defenses have finally crumbled.
Yanji recalls childhood memories of Brother Zen, feeling the prince's familiar, possessive touch. A flashback reveals a young Yanji standing under blossoms, remembering the boy he once knew. The prince's purple eyes soften with affection as he gazes down at the man he reclaimed.
Water ripples around them as the prince holds Yanji close, their hands entwined in the bath.
Yanji admits the prince's current rank prevents him from seeing him simply as Brother Zen.
The prince pulls Yanji closer, insisting he still wants to be called by his childhood name.
Looking vulnerable, the guard begs His Highness to reconsider their complicated and intimate arrangement. A small, soft smile touches the prince's lips as he dismisses the guard's formal concerns.
Their silhouettes merge in the water as the prince pulls the guard into another tight embrace.
Night falls over the palace grounds as a glowing crescent moon hangs in the sky.
In the courtyard, the prince warns the guard to be honest to keep their relationship secret.
The prince commands the guard to lie down while the man remains silent and pensive. A chibi Yanji is told to sleep as the curtain falls over the royal bedchamber.
The guard lies still with his eyes closed, the moonlight reflecting off his calm, sleeping face.
The guard awakens with a start, his hand flying to his throat as a fever takes hold. Startled by the sudden heat, the prince urgently calls for a doctor to treat his guard.
The prince grips the guard's wrist, his expression turning to one of deep, frantic concern.
The physician examines the feverish guard while the prince questions the suddenness of the high fever.
The doctor continues his checkup as the guard remains flushed and unconscious in the bed.
Looking grim, the physician asks if they had engaged in intimate acts before the fever struck.
In a chibi warning, the doctor explains the health risks of not cleaning properly after intimacy.
Stunned, the chibi prince realizes his mistake and agrees to use the prescribed medicine.
The prince orders absolute secrecy regarding the night's events, forbidding any reports to the empress.
The physician bows deeply, promising his silence before departing from the prince's presence.
A sharp, wet tack sounds as the prince wrings out a cloth to care for his guard.
The prince sits by the bed, personally tending to the feverish guard in the quiet room.
A soft, pained sounds as the guard dazedly awakens while being tended to.
The prince looks on with guilt, daubing his own forehead as morning light finally breaks. The guard blinks awake, stunned to see the prince still by his side after an entire night. Overwhelmed by the prince's dedication, the guard asks if His Highness truly watched over him all night.
The guard's face flushes with shock while a chibi bird chirps in the background of his confusion. Stammering, the guard addresses his master as the prince watches him with a weary, solemn gaze.
The prince admits fault for the guard's condition, promising to be more careful next time.
A quiet, affirmative sounds as the guard blushes at the prince's mention of their first time.
The prince presents the medicine, ordering the guard to rest instead of going out on patrol. Despite the guard's protests, the prince firmly insists on feeding him the bitter medicinal brew.
The guard stares at the spoon in silence, his expression one of quiet, resigned acceptance.
Morning light filters in as the prince tells the guard to sleep longer instead of working.
The prince pulls the guard back into a protective embrace, allowing them both to rest. The prince cradles the resting guard, their faces close in a moment of quiet, intimate peace.